Hey everybody, welcome to another Tuesday Live with Jen and Joe. We are super excited today to have on Al Nicoletti, who is also down here in the sunny, sunshine state of Florida. We are just loving being able to connect with other awesome people, and Al is honestly one of our favorites.
As a probate attorney, which many of you have either used or you're going to use if you're going to be a real estate investor, of sometimes you're going to run into a seller where maybe they just inherited a property, right? Mom or dad or both passed away, and somebody has this property and they want to sell it. One of my clients right now just got on a call with me because she's dealing with this on a decent property, and the kids are a little in a tough situation because they did a video chat and this house is
Mhm.
full of stuff, right? And mom unexpectedly passed away, and now they're in a challenge, right? They don't want to have that $500 payment over their heads and they want to sell this property and they need help. So, Al, why don't you introduce yourself and we're going to chat a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, no, Jen and Joe, thank you so much for having me. And Jen, appreciate the remarks of being the favorites, among the favorites. And Joe, as always, it's always exciting to talk about these deals and just to really have this conversation of what happens when investors get into all these messy probate situations, especially in Florida. So for those that don't know, my name's Al Nicoletti. I'm a probate real estate attorney in Florida. I've done over 600 probates in the last 7 years. I've seen a lot of things from very easy probates to really whacked out complex situations that have gotten solved and actually produced a really good, successful result for the investor. I love this practice. I think it's a growing niche. It's something that as I do this every day, I'm more excited about it. I wouldn't have gotten into it had I not seen what growth was going to come from the next 10, 20, 30 years. But I do webinars, seminars. I'm all over social media. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I do lots of videos. I'm either out on the golf course or at a conference or at a mastermind in talking to different people. So, check those out. Follow me there. But this is the specialty I love talking about, and this is why Jen and Joe bring me on, is because this is what I get into as a specialist and expert in this industry.
Well, and this is where, once again, doing this, I mean, you guys, is this like your specialty, probates?
Yeah, this is the number one. Yes.
Right. So you're dealing with probably a lot of really tough situations. So we're
Mhm.
going to ask some, like, maybe some best practices or some advice that you would give for maybe somebody just starting out and they're talking to sellers, and maybe you come across one of these leads. And when we talk about a motivated seller, because that's generally who we work with, are folks who are motivated to sell their property, right? They want to sell. And generally, when you work with motivated sellers, you're gonna come across this. And it's not just like if I come across this, it's only a matter of fact is when.
Mhm.
And I could see your space really taking off because the biggest population right now is what, baby boomers.
Yeah, it's baby boomers and surprisingly, what I've seen over the last even 2, 3 years is, a lot of land popping up here and there. We've gotten a lot of the land probates that come up, houses in the metros, but not just houses in the metros, also in some of the other areas you wouldn't expect, and just people own these properties for years. And sometimes they died years ago, not just a week or 2 ago. I'm talking 5, 10 years, and the family just never took care of doing the probate. They weren't interested in selling. There was no motivation at the time. Maybe they had thought, we're going to keep it, we're going to rehab it, or somebody wants to buy it out. But after a while, they're done paying the taxes, they're done paying the mortgage, and they get to a point of, we're ready to sell. So we're seeing so many different kinds, from people that may have passed 2 months ago versus 10, 15, 20 years ago. And now we have to do the probate in order for the investor to buy it. We have to do it. And like you said, more investors are going to come across this because, yeah, the baby boomer era is there, but eventually people just want to sell. But they can't sell. These people can't sell if somebody owned that property and died, and that person had an interest or owned that property themselves. So you're going to see this more.
So for some of us who might
Mhm.
not know exactly what probate means, maybe we've heard it, maybe
Yeah.
we've never heard it, right? But for some of us who might not know what this means, what exactly is probate?
Yeah, so what probate is, it's really the process of getting the title out of the deceased person's name and moving it to who the heirs are. And the way we do that is through the court system. So once we have everything we need, and don't forget to go over the checklist, we'll go over that because that's a big thing for investors. Once we have everything together, and we know, hey, there's a piece of property, it was in mom or dad's name, maybe there's a car, a bank account, we're naming those things in these documents. Who is the person that died, who the beneficiaries are, what the assets are, putting it all in paperwork, and then all the heirs are signing it. We're filing it in the courthouse. Eventually, we're going to get court orders. And those court orders, once signed, make that official determination that transfers that title to those heirs. So it's just formally getting out of that person's name, moving it to the new heirs. So now they're the owners. They're the ones entitled to that asset. That's it.
So obviously, if the probate process isn't done, mom or dad pass away, the kids now have, I guess, next in line. They're the heirs, but without that process of the probate, they can't sell a property that they technically don't own. Right?
Right.
So what would have to happen is they would have to go through that entire process of transferring that ownership from the deceased person's name, which is through court and a great attorney, and then now put them in the driver's seat. Now they own the property, so therefore now they can sell the property. So does probate have to be done?
Yeah, it has to be done. In order for it to truly get sold or for title insurance to write a policy to the new buyer, and Florida requires it nonetheless, you have to get probate done. So I can think of so many situations where, and this is what happens either off the call or I'll get an email a couple weeks from now where somebody just goes under contract with a seller that really is an heir. They get that contract, they open it up at the escrow at the title company. Title company gives a report back, that title commitment, and the title commitment says probate is required. So this is a title requirement. This is a situation that has to be solved in order for them to sell, but for you to buy. It's
Mhm.
that roadblock, that little bump that's you got to go over first to get solved, and then you can move forward.
So I have to ask, did you all of a sudden wake up one morning and say, you know what, when I grow up, I'm going to be a probate attorney? What made you get into this in the first place?
That definitely didn't happen. Not even close. I think what really happened was, you go to law school and in the beginning, it's like you think you want to do something. And what I wanted to do was entertainment law. That's because I had a music background. I thought I'll go to law school, I would do entertainment law. But as you start seeing the different things in law school, you're like, never mind that, never mind that. So you come out of school, and what do you do when you work? You just like take any job, right? Start working. Like that was the big thing I wish I had done even sooner than that. Just start getting work experience like right away. Dive in, see what you like, what you don't like. But really a huge other, that's a whole side story, which is one of my best friends, he was like, hey, have you ever looked into probate? And I had no idea what it was. I knew there was some kind of correlation with dealing with foreclosures, and like I've seen probates because people owned the property, they maybe had a mortgage, their banks foreclosing, but they died. But I didn't know it like this. And after looking into it, I really saw this massive opportunity of how many people own properties in Florida and all these counties and have never gone through probate. And what it was they've never been offered a position of, hey, I'm interested in buying your house, but I can help pay for it at closing or wait until the closing to get paid, right? And that's not me as the one proposing to buy. It's the investor. Then nobody was being able to give that message. So when I saw that and I spoke about it, I talked about it, all of a sudden it blew up. And I saw the vision of these probates can be done in like days, weeks, a couple months. And when you start telling people time is really quick on something, what are they going to do? They're going to take action and start going right to that because time is money. Everybody wants these deals like that. And that's what happened, Joe's. I just saw this. I did the marketing, did the speaking, I did the results because marketing's nothing without results. I did the results and it just became this cycle and blew up. And I think my first year was like 30 probates. Then it was like 90. Then it was 150. And so that was a result of me sharing the vision, sharing the opportunity behind it. And what did it do? Made money. I mean, if you're going to keep buying or doing creative financing on properties, you're doing it because, yeah, you know it's a win-win-win for everybody, but at the end of the day, it's making money. So it's no different than what I saw with that. And I went all in on that. So no, when I was 5 years old, I was not like, I want to be a probate lawyer.
Wow. So you started off in
Miami.
Miami,
Yeah.
did that, and now you live in Jacksonville, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in Florida, doing probate. So if anybody needs an amazing probate attorney in Florida, Al is your guy. He's
Mhm.
your dude. We started following Al a long time ago, and then he was actually in the same mastermind that we are, the family mastermind. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We got to hang out the last mastermind more, went to dinner, and we asked, can you be on our podcast? We'd love to have you on there because if you are buying real estate, some of the tips Al was dropping at dinner,
Mhm.
I looked at her like, oh, we need to have him on there because it's just like there's so many different moving parts. You know,
Yeah.
you're dealing with a family who's going through a lot, right? They just lost a loved one. The second part of it is, what do I do with all of this stuff? Right? It's overwhelming of what do I do with all this stuff? And then how do I hit the easy button? And it's really kind of complicated, right? So sometimes when you run into folks who just inherited a house, they're reaching out to real estate investors because they need help and they want to hit an easy button. Right. And so with the probate process, is it always, because I know you shared some really interesting stories and some things were very eye-opening. So what are some of the best practices you would think if you're an investor and you're talking to a seller in this situation, or maybe it's actually happening to you? Is there some things I should do or not do?
Um, in terms of first, like qualifying a seller, right? Whether alive or heirs. So I think that's definitely number one. You have to be able to tell, are these people going to be serious about doing the transaction at all? We've gotten really good on our end of like being able to know and see, hey, are they going to get us the documents? Are they going to cooperate? Are they going to be able to get on the conference call with Al? So first thing is cooperation, qualifying the heirs themselves. And that's why I have a checklist. If you email me, I'll provide the checklist. Or I can even send it to you guys so they can get it from you. But what we're doing is saying, hey, do you have the death certificate? Do you have the will? Did you get the title commitment yet from the title company? That title commitment is a really a best practice. Why? Because it will tell you if probate's needed or not. And it benefits you because if no probate's needed, then great, you get to move on with your deal. If it's needed, it tells us exactly who we have to do it for. We're not guessing. I'd say about 10 to 20% of these have quick claims, messy situations. Somebody didn't do the deed right. And you think it's one probate, but we're doing great grandfathers. So the title commitment is a best practice that, and people, what'll happen is they'll say, okay, I'll get you the title search. No, 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 no. Title commitment, because that's going to be the bottom line by line item. What is needed to close on this property? It's a basic concept that a lot of wholesalers and investors probably learn year 1 through 3. But I see people from time to time that they still don't get the title commitment, and that doesn't help you at all. So this is that checklist, right? Getting names, getting contact info. If there's if you find out from that one contact, they said, oh, there's 4 others, right? There's 5 of us total. Are they all on board? Are they going to cooperate? Where are they? Asking questions, you're going to need them. So you have to qualify everything to make sure that this deal is going to happen. That's a big point, Joe, that to start. I don't know if you wanted to go deeper on that, but these items are important. Getting these heirs to sign the contract as well. If you're talking to a seller and they tell you, yeah, it's just me, my red flag goes up immediately. I feel like I have to ask them 3 times like Beetlejuice. Because when you really ask them again and again, all of a sudden it's like there's 7, right? And then it's like, well, voila. Where is everybody? What, what's their emails? We got to send them the DocuSign. We got to send them information. So you have to get all this stuff up front. I tell investors, if you get all these things up front and the heirs will cooperate, they will send you stuff. They will send us stuff, get us stuff, jump on the conference call. You're ahead of the game. You're there. If they start wasting your time, you know it, and you got to get out. You're going to get 10 more deals, picking up the phones, doing outbound, inbound marketing, than wasting your time with that. That's for sure one. I would also say, figure out your numbers too. A lot of these deals come down to, is the money in the transaction? So scenario, Joe, we've come across situations where it's not just one probate we're doing, but sometimes when I do the whole analysis, we find out it's 4 probates, right? Because Jenn, it's like grandfather, then father died after, then the wife died after the son, and then we find out we're doing multiple probates, right? So we have multiple situations. The number of probates isn't the concerning part. The concerning part is we can do 5, 6 probates. Is the money there to even do it? So it's no different than if you're doing a creative finance deal. It's no different than if you're doing a conventional buy, you're a cash buyer. You're always running your numbers. You got to factor this in, because who's going to be paying for this? Are you guys going to split the baby with the heirs at the closing? Are you offering your full concierge service to at closing pay for the probate? Or are you saying to them, it doesn't matter if it's 6 probates, it's coming off the seller side, off the HUD? You got to run your numbers. Land deals are super tight deals. Just had one where they're like, I don't know if we could do it. Houses, there's tons of equity. So 6 probates on one property is going to be like nothing. It's still going to be a lot of money, but run your numbers. And don't necessarily throw the deal out right away when you see something messy. So I'm not just talking probate, but maybe if you see like the title commitment says like 2, 3 probates needed or something. In some investors in the past before me, I was told they'd say they pass that off immediately. They'd say we're not interested in doing a deal like that. And I think it was because they, 1, didn't have a specialist, 2, they didn't realize that it was going to be a lot easier than it was expected, and 3, they didn't realize that, wait, you got somebody that's going to say, hey, no risk up front, wait till close and everybody can move forward. So don't pass off the messy deals right away. Take a look at them, run your numbers, qualify sellers. I think that's everything in a deal.
Wow.
And I agree, because when we did our first probate deal, it was a property in Pennsylvania in a small town, and the separated wife, they were separated for like 15 years, but the husband passed away in his house, and there was 5 kids. So it was tracking down, and all the kids lived around the country. Some of them weren't talking to the other ones, right? So there was that strain going into it. But we had like 6 people we had to get involved and get signatures from. It was a little stressful, especially if some of the family is not cooperating, right? And the house full of stuff. So luckily, the attorney we had in Pennsylvania was knowledgeable about this. Boy, if we had you, it would have been so much easier. So once again, he's like our Florida probate attorney, but it's getting like what you mentioned earlier. It's a great point, is you have to find all of the heirs and you got to get them all on the same page. And sometimes they're fighting with each other, right? Sometimes some want to sell, some don't want to sell, some don't like that price. Some want more money, some don't care, some don't want to be. It's a messy situation. So
Mixed bag, yeah.
I always say when you're talking to sellers in these situations, you got to come from the heart and a way to help them because they're dealing with a lot of stuff. And I will say, if you're able to offer an easier solution for them, you're more likely going to get the deal. But like Al said, the numbers have to make sense, right? And there's some attorneys, they charge for this up front and they want a lot of money up front, and that could sometimes squash your deal. Now, is it true, Al, there are some attorneys that will work with you and they will get paid no money up front? They take the money out of the proceeds of the deal. Is that right? After everybody, the dust settles?
Well, that's the type that you're looking for sure. That if you're in another state, regardless, Florida, Ohio, Texas, that's the type of attorney you would want working with you on the transaction, because they're basically telling you, hey, all we need is just get the probate done. You're under contract with the heir. Perfect. We'll wait till close. But what I've been told is like I'm a unicorn when it comes to this. Like it's like unusual. Anytime I've done an introductory call with a new investor or an investor that's they're like, hey, I need to get probate done. What's your systems? What's your process? And as soon as I say the words of we're waiting until closing, they're like, wow, game changer. I'm like, I've been doing that for 7 years. For me, I'm sure you guys can relate to this. For me, it's like that's just every day. But for them, it's a unique thing. So it seems to be just something unique that is offered. And when you get that, it works out well. Because if you're starting out, you don't have that capital to just throw $4,000 or $5,000 around. I mean, do you have $4,000 or $5,000 around to pay the taxes off for a seller that's about to go to a tax deed auction in 5 days? No. I mean, but if they told you that they're taking care of it and they'll still go under contract with you, you're like, well, perfect. I mean, it's the same thing. It's a no risk situation. That's what you want. And it's a win-win for everybody. And heirs, they love it too. If you find a way where you can structure it where it's tough, but if you're finding a way where you can structure it where you're the one paying for it off the buyer side, off the HUD, and you kind of factor that in your contract, and you're going to them with this like, we're paying for probate, we're paying for the closing costs, we're paying for inspections, and then they're like, wait, we don't have to do anything. Well, who do you think they're going to go with all day?
Absolutely. And that was the key. I knew the answer to that, but I wanted to kind of make it known to everybody because on that one deal, the attorney wanted all this money up front. And our seller, who her husband, that they've been together in like 15 years, she didn't have $5,000. And nor did she have the ability to come up with it. So it was in one of those situations where the attorney was like, fine, I guess I'll help and take the money out of the transaction. But initially, that wasn't the thing. So when you're looking for a probate attorney, the fact is, Al just rattled off those 4 or 5 positive notes. When you are talking to a seller in that situation, that's what will separate you from other investors. But by having a probate attorney that you work with, that you have a relationship with, that's willing to do that for you, that's key. So if I'm talking to a seller in Florida and they're inherited a home and I say that we pay the closing costs, we'll take care of the probate attorney. You guys don't have to come up with the $5,000 to handle that process. We'll buy the property as is. So what do I do with all of the stuff inside? Take what you want and we'll donate the rest of it. Or if there's any garbage, we'll take care of all of that for you, right? Just take the valuables that are special to you. And if you could offer those benefits to a seller, you're more likely going to get that deal than another investor. Even if it's the same dollars for dollars, they're going to like your offer better than the other one. And sometimes your offer might not even be as high as the other investors, but maybe because you're bringing more value to the deal, not in just money, but convenience and speed, they will still choose you.
Yeah,
So
100%.
you just dropped like some key major points right
Yeah,
there.
there are a lot of notes I hope people are taking. You're sharing so much gold. And I want to back up a little because you do say that there's messy deals and it does sound a little overwhelming at times, especially if you're a newer investor and you've mentioned like some people will run away. So I don't know if you could maybe give some examples of why it was worth playing it out and how people got paid and how people were helped. If you have any scenarios you could kind of run us through.
Yeah, I mean, I got one. I got a lot. One. I'm just thinking of this one land deal right now where there's like $100,000 spread and there's 2 probates and the second one's really messy, but everyone's kind of on board. Um, I would say For the single family homes, a lot of those seem to be really straightforward in terms of somebody owned the property, mom had it, the father predeceased, there's 4 kids. And of course, you're right, Jen. The struggle is, you got one, but you got to get the other 3. And that's where, like, sometimes on the phone, I'm like, hey, there's 3 more. You gotta get them all first before we do this. It's the land ones where you're going after land deals, and some of these heirs are in California or Oregon or the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and you have no idea how to get a hold of them. And the family knows who they are, but some of these families don't talk for 20, 30 years. And sometimes we've been through situations where they reconnected because of doing the probate.
Wow.
But we had one, so there's been a total of 3 to 4 of these where the type of probate that it was, we were able to do what's called a full-blown formal and get around a missing heir. So what happens, there was a piece of property, I think it was in either Jacksonville or somewhere. Lady died, she had 4 kids, but she didn't live there. And so when I talked to the main heir, I said, "Where are the other 3?" She said, "Well, the other there's 2 of them in Maryland, and then the other one, the brother, we can't find." And I said, "Okay, based on experience, I looked at this specific situation, because this isn't for every deal like this. The lady didn't live there. It wasn't the homestead. My next question was, how much spread is in the deal?" And the investor was like, "Oh, there's like $85,000 here." I said, "Where was the last you saw the brother?" They said, "Somewhere in Florida." I said, "Great. We're going to do a whole administration. We're going to get the order authorizing sale. We're going to serve formal notice to him. He doesn't respond after a period of time. We'll send the orders in, get the order, send it to the title company. Serve the guy, couldn't find him, send it to the last known address, send it to the judge, laid everything out. Boom, order signed, got completely around the missing heir. And what she had to do when the property sold was take the money and deposit it in the court registry so that he technically gets his share. The 2 get their share in Maryland, she gets her share. But we got around a messy situation of a missing heir that you couldn't find. And it takes that kind of mind to think through that kind of deal, because that doesn't happen all the time. But that to me is a messy deal. We've seen ones where the property was going up for like auction in like 3 days, tax deed auction. Anybody knows about that? Either you pay the back taxes or it's going to auction. And we had to do a quick analysis on the whole deal. End up finding out that there's 2 heirs total. But it was going to need 6 probates.
Wow.
Yeah. And I asked the family member, I mean, here, the good news is 2 ultimate heirs, 6 probates. That's the good news, that you're not dealing with 25 beneficiaries. It's just 2 people. But the family had said that they went to like 4 or 5 different lawyers and nobody else could figure it out. And so I was like, I don't know, it seemed pretty self-explanatory for me. It was complicated, but it was messy. So they paid off the back taxes. They were all in back taxes and probate attorney's fees. It was expensive. I'd say about 40,000 all in. They listed it for like 180,000 on the MLS.
Mm.
And I'm talking commercially zoned land, South Florida.
Wow. Wow.
So you can imagine what that buyer did.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
So messy, but possible, huge spreads.
So you got to just obviously track down everybody in the deal. Your best situations, I think, are actually, now I think about it, our very first probate was mom and dad passed away and they had 1 child, 1 heir to it all. Talking with her, that was a very simple one, right? But then when you're trying to track down multiple family members in multiple states and some of them don't talk and you can't even find one of them, that takes some more time, takes a little bit more digging, right?
Yeah.
What does that process look like if there's something missing? Like, what do I expect for a turnaround time
Yeah, I was
before?
curious, like time frame wise, is there even a gauge you can give people?
So that situation was a bit different. When I'm on a conference call and we find out that there's 7 kids and like 2 of them they can't find, that's when I'm like, before you come back to me, there's got to be skip tracing done, or you got to go out and find them, because 95% of these deals, 98, you're gonna need everybody. Title insurance requires it. You're gonna need it. The numbers got to be there, right? So that's when you got to tap into your great skip tracing, tap into experts that, I mean, I know people that help other investors go find heirs like this. Yeah, they charge, but they go find these people. Or you know, get just really good skip tracing software, and that's it. If you find them, you find them. It's going to take some time. You know, if you're wholesaling this and you already got a buyer lined up, you need to tell them, hold on a second. Like, this is not happening in 3 weeks. This is not happening in 2 months. Like, maybe you got to get out of that contract, but hold your deal with the sellers and say, we're going to take some time on this. And you tell the sellers too, say, listen, we specialize in trying to locate these people and getting into these deals. We're helping you do this versus somebody else that may not be able to. You just got to give us the time to do it. I don't do it in-house on skip tracing and stuff. There's no way we'd have the bandwidth to do that. It'd be crazy. But that's where we analyze the deal just enough to say, okay. And again, the family members know. They know if you ask them enough, maybe they don't tell you at first. I can think of so many situations where I pinned them in the call and I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? And then they were like, yeah, they're probably in New Jersey. And I was like, so we got a location, right? And so then now you've narrowed your skip trace to somewhere in New Jersey. You know, it jogs their memory. Sometimes their memory takes a while. So you just never know what happens when you ask certain questions of people and the family members. They know.
This is so fascinating. It's like you, and I know Joe loves this kind of stuff. Like he loves the challenge, like the hunt, the finding all of the facts out. I mean, you almost look at like a game of
Well,
like,
too, if you need to get somebody tracked down, just contact my wife, Jen, because she can find anything.
no.
She can find anything. It's missing, she'll find it. She just has this
Right.
ability. But it's like what Al just mentioned is getting really good at asking the sellers the right questions.
Over and over and over.
And sometimes you might have to ask them the same question twice or maybe multiple times to get the answers. But really what you're trying to do is you're trying not to waste too much time of your attorney's time.
Right.
Okay. The thing that attorneys will love, and I'm not an attorney, but I would imagine, is when they're like, hey, Al, I got a deal. Mom and dad passed away. There's 4 heirs. I have them all. One was a little tricky to locate, but he's out in Colorado. I got them. They're all on the same page. They know we're selling. They know they're fully cooperating. We just need to get through the process. They're loving the fact they don't have to come up with any money, and that we're going to handle all of this for them, right? So is there anything else I missed out of that equation? That it's like, Al's like, yes, I love that. That's an easy peasy one.
And Al, by the way, we completed your checklist and sent you the title commitment, the contract, the death certificate, the will, and here it is in the email. That's a win all day for me.
Winning.
I'm going nuts.
Yeah.
If that happens, I'm calling my assistant Christina and going, what's the availability for tomorrow on this? You know,
Right.
because that's the ultimate game, is that, can we get everything from these people? And it's not a giant laundry list. Like, I used to have a checklist. It was like 15 items. And the reason I did that is because there's a tax deed auction, there's a foreclosure auction, there's the funeral bill thing. And it was nuts. But what I learned is that might be okay for an investor, but if you give that to the seller, it may be overwhelming. So we condensed it down to like nitty gritty. What exactly do we need just to get enough analysis? And so we know. So yeah, you get all that, boom, we're all on board, boom. And it's okay. Sometimes you may not know, like, and I get some investors after the call, like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't, they never told me that there was like 5 other people. Guess what? It happens, because there's something about when they talk to you, they tell you one thing, that they're the only child. And there's something about, I don't know if it's the way I'm pointing the questions or the way I get down on a call, all of a sudden they like start telling the truth under like they were on the witness stand or something. So it's gonna happen. And yeah, Joe, you can imagine me on the call when they finally say, yeah, there's 7 of us. I'm thinking, why couldn't they just tell you guys that and we would know already? But it happens. You
Well, I
just
think you probably come from the position of authority. You're an attorney who specializes in this, so you probably know the right way to ask the right questions, right? But
Yeah.
also, too, you having that authority. So once again, having a great probate attorney on your side is priceless, guys. And this is where one of our mutual investor friends, Nick, will say, "Oh, I just wrote up a deal, but then found out it was in probate. So, off to Al it goes."
Yeah.
But that's the point of it too. So if the flip side of what Al said a minute ago is if you're dealing with a situation and you know that is going through this, and you're either going to wholesale that agreement to another buyer, you just want to let the other buyer know that this deal is in probate, that we're probably not going to close in 2 to 3 weeks like we're all hoping to. So I just need some patience on your side. So when I'm talking with buyers, I let them know, hey guys, this deal's in probate. Good news is I tracked down all the heirs and I got my favorite attorney, all the stuff he wanted. So this will be a quicker one, or there's a missing heir. You just want to be transparent with your buyer so they don't just disappear halfway along to where you go through this whole process and it's 2 months later or however time. And then they're like disappeared and they already bought 5 other properties and they have no more interest in your deal. So just be transparent with your buyer, the situation that it's going through. And so your buyers stay on the hook too. That's, I think, super important.
Or they leave and you can find a new buyer if the deal is really great, like Al said.
Yeah, absolutely.
But sometimes you find that one buyer that completely understands, right?
Mhm.
And I think it just comes down to communication and saying,
Absolutely.
hey, we ran it through title. This is why getting a title commitment's good. The proof is there. We ran title, unexpected title issues come up. It's going to take a bit longer than expected, not terribly long. I mean, probates right now are like 4 to 8 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, sometimes 2 weeks. Like we're not talking like 6 to 9 months, right? So with these probates, you just going to the buyer and saying, look, hey, we'll extend it a bit, we'll keep you in the loop, but it's a different process. And if they back out, like Jenn said, you'll go find a new one. You know, I mean, I've done this long enough to say, like, go find a new buyer. Who cares? So a Jenn and Joe are going to stick around because they're in touch with Nick and they're in touch with other investors that go through these situations. They're informed, right? If you're keeping people informed, they're cool. If you keep in touch with the seller and say, hey, this is what's going on, or a week later, hey, you think they're gonna stray off and go under contract with someone else? They're gonna stay on. So keeping in touch and communication's everything.
Well, and that's the key of it. And I mean, because we were not a probate, but we were in a situation where we bought a short sale and we were waiting, I think it was 9 months from when we made the deal until we were able to close on it. And it's 9 months of you socking away that money, knowing that when you get the phone call saying they're clear to close, like they want to close like tomorrow, it's that quick type thing. So you just have to be mindful of, sometimes these deals do take a little, not hopefully 9 months, but they do take a little bit longer. And so you just want to always inform your buyers. So then everybody's that open line of communication. It makes the deals a lot smoother too. So don't hide stuff. If it's a probate deal, say, hey, it's a probate deal, like what Nick does, our buddy, or we've done many times, and just let our buyers know, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And the timing, Joe, timing on probates blows everybody away. Marion County's got a turnaround time right now of like 2 weeks.
mm,
Duval's pretty consistent. Duval and Jacksonville is probably like 3 to 5, 6 weeks. Love Clay County. Clay County turnaround's like about a week to 2 weeks. Lee County is fantastic. Lee's like sometimes it's hit and miss, but Lee's been really fast. Like it'll be either like 5 days or it'll be 3 to 4 weeks, So yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I can't win, it's like roulette on I think it's gonna be
oh
this.
yeah.
So I just want people to be aware of that. There are some counties that are different. Manatee is like a manatee, literally.
Go
Um
figure.
it literally is a manatee. Brevard County, it's got weird rules. So things are going to be different there. But the difference you get with someone like me is I tell you, said, whoa, we're in Brevard. The price is definitely higher. The timing's definitely like 3 to 4 months. Don't be surprised when they the orders back because they always think something's wrong, you know? So you're gonna get the transparency, and that's what you are always looking for. You're in Texas, California, Michigan, Pennsylvania, whatever state you're investing in, North Carolina, that's the transparency you want. Just tell me up front what it's gonna be. You know,
Yeah,
Jen and
we
Joe are
actually,
like,
yeah, we have a John in the chat here. He's saying he's doing one in Naples, Florida. So I don't know what county that
yeah.
is. But is there any way to get the lawyer to speed up prepping docs if everyone is on board with selling? This process seems to be slow and drawn out. Thanks.
You know, I wish there was. I mean, you get the airs on them, just start telling them, hey, what's going on? What's happening? You know, what are you doing? It gets to a certain point where the end of the day, the people making the decisions are the heirs. And if they get fed up, then they can do where they can go wherever they want. Right. So it gets to the point of what do they eventually want to do? Because they're the ones that are signing up the lawyer. But you never know what's going on. It's so hard to say. I don't know what's happening in that law firm. They, you know, maybe somebody's out, maybe somebody's not there, maybe they're on skeleton crew, or maybe it's just who knows. But you just got to ask. And by the way, I saw Elizabeth posted, does a trust circumvent probate? Yeah, the trust of if the property is titled in a trust, if the property is titled as a trust, it avoids probate. But what happens is you get on the phone with the heirs, and I got this situation before. Lady died. The investor called the heir, said, "Hey, are you interested in selling? I found your property that you might be inheriting." She goes, "My mom always had every property in a trust." And so the investor was like, "Well, I'm looking at the deed right now. It's in her name." Nope. Mom had everything in a trust. She did a trust for everything, every property. Well, what was the one property she didn't title in a trust? That land. And so there was a real friction about understanding. And so she had a trust, but the property, the land in Florida was not titled in a trust. So it needs probate, right? It's all about, is the property titled in that person's name individually and they die? That's the probate part. And we see, I can get into crazy things with, oh, they have a will, and then we find out the will leaves it to a trust. I got that wackadoodle one right now. And then we're having to like completely ignore and bypass. Like, you know, I get creative with this stuff because at the end of the day, I don't want to make this any more complicated. Honestly, I'd rather have the simple, easy probate that we can do instead of trying to do this like crazy thing and getting all these things from California and having a hearing. Who wants to do all that? We want to get this thing done. I want to get it
Having
done.
a hearing. Whoa, whoa.
Yeah,
Why would you
Jen.
need a hearing? You gotta spill the beans on that one.
Well, you know, a lot of these wills from other states aren't always executed to the way Florida wants it. And so if somebody had a will, let's just say Oregon, Puerto Rico is the worst, but Oregon, and it's not executed right. Let's just say the person witnessed it, one witness, one sign. Well, Florida, that's not what's needed here. There's more requirements for it. And so then I'm looking at, I'm like, hey, did you guys go through probate in Oregon? They're like, no. And I'm like, can't really use this. But we could maybe get around it, you know? And so I'm always thinking through, like, you know, can we get around something like this? Do we even have to like venture into this? Because if you're trying to get a will like that into probate, Jen, you're talking hearings, witnesses, people showing up, swearing in. I mean, that's a lot of coordination. That's people taking time out of their work day. That's people taking time to show up on Zoom. It's crazy. So we want to make it the most easy, efficient, simple way. So the whole deal gets done, but also everybody's on board to make it a happy situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
So can all attorneys do probate?
I don't know. We'd have to actually ask them. I don't think so, but
Right.
you
Well, the
know,
reason why I bring that up is because when we had dinner, you could tell Al was really deep into this process. This is his specialty,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure you could perform other things, but this is the one thing where you know, if I'm having an issue with something, like I want to go to a specialist who understands all the small little caveats to making sure this gets through successfully, cleanly, the right way, without having to bang your head against the wall repeatedly,
Right.
because nobody wants that, right? So to find somebody who is a specialist, and this is going to be the difference of making this process a lot easier on yourself, finding somebody like Al, or find Al himself, right? If you're in
You're in
Florida.
Florida.
Because the reason why is like when I've chatted with other attorneys who know how to do it, but they don't specialize in it, they might not know all the little intricacy things that you need to do, right? So if I'm talking to a lawyer the first time, is it more than just asking, like, are you a probate attorney? Like, what does that conversation look like?
So qualifying, right? What type of law do you do in your practice? What's your main practice area, right? If you ask me that, that's probate, right?
Right.
That's like 95, 98% of my practice. I do some other interesting things as well, but I keep it very narrow. So asking what kind of practice do you have? You know, is it just very niche, or is, you know, we do criminal, divorce, and personal injury. Like I'm total as a lawyer, I'm turned off by that. And then you ask, you know, what percentage of the practice do you deal with like real estate deals, right? Because you do want someone that is experienced with real estate. You don't want to just jump in and they're like, yeah, we deal with this. Like this is every day for me. Like title commitments and crazy situations is every day. So what is that? Like what's that percentage look like? You know, when they're like 70, 80, good. If they're like 30, I'd be a little concerned. You know, do they work with realtors and investors? I mean, at the end of the day, if you're either bringing them the deal or you're working on the deal, are they going to communicate like with you, right? Do they work? I mean, 90% of my practice realtors, investors. I mean, that's like it's like almost 100. So that's important. And then also, do they work with really good title companies? Are they really good hand in hand with good title companies? Because I'm not a title company, but I know where to go when deals get messy for certain situations. I'm very well aware, like I can spit out of my mouth very certain title companies that are creative, get around it, do it. That's what you want. Someone that's got like, we know where to go when these situations get tough. So, and it's funny you say that because I was asked that question. I think I forgot who it was, maybe Pace Morby Zoom, and somebody said, how do you find a really good probate lawyer in your state? And I was like, it just came off my mind. That's it. It's asking these percentage questions.
Mhm.
And if you can't find one of the best things you can do is go to your local RIAs. Your local RIAs have not just new people, but the whales show up. The ones that are doing it like 10 deals a month, they show up. And when you find that, ask them and say, I got this. Like you don't even have to know the person. Just say, hey, I heard you're like the best, the go-to. I got this really screwed up deal. I have no idea who's like the go-to attorney for this situation. Boom, they'll tell you. They'll tell
Well,
you.
and that's why I asked that question, because like I'm a real world example. I have a cousin in New York who is an attorney, but he is criminal defense. You trip and fall, he's the guy to call, right? You get in a car accident, whatever. That's like what he does. Does he do real estate deals? He can, but he doesn't. He tells you straight up, like, I hate doing them. So I don't have him do them. I
Right.
have an attorney who's not my family, but who specializes in real estate deals in New York. And that's who closes those deals. So finding an attorney that specializes in this is just the difference of night and day. Number two, usually sometimes the pricing I thought was better, because for what my cousin charges for me to close on a real estate deal, because he hardly does it, is an arm and a leg, right? For the team who does this and they're already lock, stock, and barrel ready to go with these deals, they're efficient at doing them. It's a little bit more cost effective, right? So finding an attorney who's obviously works well with investors, who specializes in probates, if that's what you're looking to do, that's how you could find one in any state.
And I'm going to chime in too, especially because we are creative. And I've heard you say it a couple of times now, Al, is like, you got to find the person that's not going to say, oh, I don't know. Right. You're like, okay, there's a workaround. Give me a minute. And then you get creative. And I think of like our mortgage officer. I think of agents we've worked with and even attorneys and title companies. Like, you have to find the people that, you know, if they're coming across something that's a little tricky, they're not throwing their hands up running away. Because guys, if you're doing creative deals, times sometimes get a little crazy. And, you know, that's why they come to us to be able to get these deals done. And like Al said, you know, he's the one that's going to go the extra mile. There's got to be a workaround and he's going to figure it out.
And I will tell you, Jen, you're right. There are a lot of times that I'm on the phone hearing the whole situation, and I will say, and I'll start asking questions. Maybe the investors don't realize it, but I'm asking specific questions because my creative side is thinking, right? Instead of being right, no, right away. I will tell you there are times where once I hear it, I hear exact, and then I'm like, you gotta get them, or you gotta get them all on board. Like, because I know what title wants. See, I'm not looking at it like just as probate. I'm looking at it, how do we close?
Yeah.
And so if the title, because I can already see what the title company's going to say. And if the title company's saying no, what's the workaround if we can? But then the second thing to your point, Jen, is we can do creative deals all day. At the end of the day, is there money in that deal to do something creative? Right? I got this land wackadoodle one that I'm working on right now where it's $100,000 spread. There's probably 5 post-deceased people, 3 pre-deceased people, couple bennies alive. It's land, and we can do that whole loop-de-loop workaround, but it's expensive, but the money's there. And so that's what's exciting about it, is knowing, hey, we're going to do all this crazy work, but at the end of the day, they're still making money. We're getting creative, but at least there's motivation for everybody to do this, because it's not a $5,000 deal. It's a $5,000 deal. I'm out. You
Yeah.
know, this has got to be good. You know,
There got to be some meat on the bone.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, you could obviously, if you're just tuning in, you can see why L's our favorite when it comes to this topic. Especially, he's our favorite because he's well versed. He knows what he's
Yeah.
doing. He's been doing it for a while. Still,
But you make it sound simple, even though it
Yeah.
is complex. Like, you break it down, like having a checklist, which we're definitely going to have to connect with because that's just music to everyone's ears, and just simplifying a messy process, and just, you know, being so human about it. Because again, it's that human connection that we're all here. We just need to communicate how to get the deal closed. And that's what's, you know, the name of the game, barring that you're making a big fat check.
No, thank you both so much. I love that. I really appreciate you guys just singing the praises, because I mean, it means a lot to me that you see the specialty side and the creative side, and that it resonates. And it's something, it's a craft that I've worked on for 7 years to really get to. And Jen, to your point, like it was tough in the beginning on the simplicity of being able to take a complex subject and make it simple. And I think that that was, thank goodness, that was in tune to really being a part of the investor community, because who's talking to these people are the investors. And the sellers, they got to be told it in a very easy way for the deal to make sense. So it can't be lawyer language, right? And so there was a relatability learning curve there. And once I figured out what that relatability of seeing it as the investor would to these people, boom, easy. Let's break it down. ABC, really easy, right? That's it.
Mhm. That's the name of the game.
well, that's the key. So obviously, we'd love to have L here for all day, but he's got stuff to go. We have him for legitly 1 hour. So
Yeah.
here's the deal, guys. We brought Al here today to let you know attorneys are awesome, and you need to have a great one working with you. That will make your life so much easier. But not only that, Al puts out some of the most amazing content. We were on his podcast, and I mean, the whole production, I mean, legit. And he just says how they're going to have a new thing for next season. So if somebody has not already been following you and your podcast, where's the best place to find Al Nicoletti?
Yeah, best place. I love YouTube and Instagram. Those have been my favorite places. All you got to do is type my name in, Al Nicoletti, on YouTube, subscribe there. Same thing with Instagram. Facebook, surprisingly, we did metrics on Facebook. Facebook viewership has been like doubled in the last year. So Facebook seems to be a hot place. You can find me there. But but those are big in the show. Thank you for pointing that out. You guys did a phenomenal job on the shows. It was heavily watched. People were, there's nothing like a live show, right? Like when you're live, it's totally engaging. It's on YouTube and Spotify and iTunes. Those have been really good, like listening platforms. You guys can't watch it. We're a visual podcast because we got the cameras, but if you guys are on the go, in the car, just got the AirPod in, check it out there. We have amazing investors like Jenn and Joe that come on, people talking about commercial, land, creative finance, title, funky stuff, marketing, branding, mindset, just things that are different. And there's no selling, there's no products. It's all value for people out there.
So the Al Nicoletti Show, right?
Yes.
So guys, that's the podcast. That's the YouTube
We'll
channel.
drop it in our show notes for everyone.
Yeah, I definitely recommend you tune into that because all stars are on his show. I mean, like fantastic. I love tuning in. I love watching, love listening, right? And sometimes I could be like just getting in the shower and I got Al's podcast going. Hey, it's the truth. That happens, right? But there's so much great stuff on there. You want to find those cracks in the day, no matter how busy you are, to listen to this stuff because
Valuable information.
they bring a ton of value and some awesome stuff. So thank you so much, Al, for tuning in today. I am so happy that we've connected. We've had dinner, that you were part of the same mastermind, and obviously a great friend. So thank you so much for coming on today. I am sure you guys will be wanting to follow Al if you're not already. And guys, stay tuned because we have more fantastic guests on here like Al coming up for 2024. Is this our last one of the year?
This is.
Wow.
Yeah, you are our final episode.
So you are our final episode of 2000. Well, what way to end it, right?
I know, out with a bang.
So, well, thank you so much, Al. You even went a couple minutes over, but we in our audience definitely appreciate you coming on here. And I'm sure you're going to get some folks to reach out to you. And for everybody else tuning in today, have a wonderful holidays. And we'll see y'all next year.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much again. Love you guys. Appreciate
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful
Thank you.
Christmas and Happy New Year, and we'll see y'all soon. Thank you
Take
guys.
care.
Bye.
Bye.